Good morning, builders. How's it going today? Little excited this morning. Finally kind of got things rolling yesterday. Talked a bit about on this show about the new website that is up and running. Of course, it's bare bones, it's minimum, but it's something. And that's what a lot of this is about. It's sort of like little incremental wins that add up pretty quickly. So this is the 13th episode already of Mornings with Mark. And I think each time it's getting a little better, hopefully. Fingers crossed, let me know. But I think I'm getting a little more clarity as to the next little while about what I want to talk about where I want to be helping people understand and educate. And that starts, with these small little wins. So the website was up yesterday, and I had a really interesting conversation yesterday with Miles Park at NPR, and I'll link to the resulting article down below. Couple quotes from me in there. And it was a really fascinating discussion. It was around U.S. election systems and cyber attacks. Now, that's a really tense issue. It's a really difficult issue to talk about sometimes because obviously it's very political. It's also very important. But what I wanted to kind of pull out of that conversation I was having with Miles was a lot of the time people look at one specific aspect of a system as opposed to the whole thing. And when it comes to security, I think this is actually probably one of our biggest problems in cybersecurity, is that we're all about system security, not systems security. So we think about one particular aspect. Can we lock down this web application? As opposed to the overall system and its security. So what does that process or workflow look like? Are we securing that? And that's really true in the context of elections. So there was a really interesting report, a threat assessment done by the Canadian Communications Security Establishment a couple months ago. Again, I'll link to that down below. And they were analyzing the threats to Canada's democratic process through cyber attack. And it was very pragmatic. Essentially, it said, from looking at a systems point of view, things are looking good, just like in other democracies, where there are a lot of checks and balances to make sure that the final tally of the vote, what really matters, is true, is fair, it is accurate, and the voter registration systems and all this type of stuff all the way through can maintain their integrity. Where it found weaknesses was on the edge. So influencing people over fake news, over social media, pushing one viewpoint out disproportionately. And that's understandable. That's what social media networks are built for. They're built for anybody to be able to share their point of view, like I'm doing right now. All I had to do was log into my Facebook account and hit live, and I'm going live. Anybody can do that. I can put money behind this to boost this up and get that into the audience. So it's not surprising that people with a nefarious or malicious intent would do that as well. There's things we need to take, steps we need to take there on the user side, on the network side, and that's being done. And also it saw, the CSC report also called out that individual members may be at risk. So because the system's core is so secure, attacks are being pushed out to the periphery. And that, outside of the elections, we see that all the time in corporations. Really strong data centers, really strong cloud deployments. So cyber criminals start attacking users because users are connecting unsecured to unsecured Wi-Fi. They're going home behind commercially available routers and logging into corporate systems. So there's weaknesses there. Where this kind of ties back to some of the stuff that I'm really excited and rolling on the next little while here, or the next few weeks, maybe months, depending on how it goes, is tying to operational technologies. So I gave some talks last year about it. I've written a little bit about it, but really I haven't been sharing the depth of the research where I've been diving into things like connected cars, like robots, like drones, like manufacturing lines, smart cities, all this kind of stuff. You've seen some stuff from Trend Micro itself. Some really great reports, and again, I'll link to those down below because I think they're really fascinating. But I look at these things more systematically, so not specific, hey, robot 123 is vulnerable to this. I think the overall system is far more interesting. And that's where operational technologies really kind of come into play. If you look at the example of like a car, let's take your car. Cars take years to develop. Right? And they go through any number of regulations. There's really strict safety standards. There's a lot of things we worry about because essentially it's a 3,000 pound, super fast, potentially deadly machine, but it's also extremely convenient. It helps us get around. We can go on vacation. We can get the kids to school. We can pick up groceries, all this kind of stuff. There's pros and cons here, but it's something that we as a community are concerned about. So we make sure that we have regulations around who can drive them. We make sure that we have regulations around how they're built, safety standards, all this kind of stuff. But where it's really lacking is on the digital side. because essentially, more and more, these cars are computers. They're robots. And worse yet, the latest, the 2018s and a lot of the 2017s have connected LTE and Wi-Fi. They're cell-enabled Wi-Fi hotspots that are also wired up to the car. And of course, it turns out the way cars communicate internally is completely unsecured because it was designed with a completely different mindset. And again, it comes down to systems thinking. Yes, my Wi-Fi access point is secure, but everything that sits around it is totally insecure. This is not a good overall security systems design, even though each individual component might be secure on its own. And I think that's extremely fascinating, and I think that's something I love diving into and looking and helping educate people around, because that's how we have to approach everything, whether that's something as massive and important as a national election to something as simple as your home, from a technology perspective, not obviously running your house, to corporate networks. Everyone's impacted this way, and I think from a cybersecurity perspective, we really need to shift our viewpoint to looking at the holistic approach as opposed to the individual components that we default to. What do you think? What have been your experiences here? Are you comfortable just thinking about endpoint or individual components as opposed to the system? Is the system too much, too big to handle? Lots to discuss here. Always hit me up online at MarkNCA. Next up in 10 days, as I keep getting the email reminders, I will be, shorter than 10 days, I'll be at South by Southwest. I'll be on site from the Friday on forward, speaking on Monday the 12th about rogue robots and the potential for cyber attacks. So very much tied into this topic of operational technology. If you're on site at South by, give me a call or hit me up on Twitter, and maybe we'll meet up for coffee or beer or something like that. If you're following along at home, I'll make sure to be pushing a lot of content out around this because I think it's fascinating. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below, and I hope you guys have a great day.